I'm Glenn Crooks, and it's time for NYCFC Views. It's the first show for Sick Podcasts, and for New York City FC, a victory. They've been rare recently, and they beat Toronto in the League's Cup. We're going to go over that tooth and nail, and then we're going to set up the scenarios as New York City has clinched a spot in the knockout round. We know that Inter Messi defeated Atlanta United in the League's Cup. We're going to go through that a little bit and what the Atlanta United situation might be right now. Possible transfer news for New York City FC and kicking it around. In addition to New York City FC, we're going to look both domestically and globally. We've got the Women's World Cup.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks, and yeah, it's sick. And Roberto, that was a great moment for us. Wonderful intro. Sammy, our producer, well done in producing that intro. But MLS Cup, we were both there in Portland, 2021. And the reason it was so meaningful to us, more than anything, I think, is that we were there in Orlando when New York City faced Orlando City, two expansion sides, in their very first match, which ended up being a 1-1 draw. Mixed Discarud and Kaká scoring goals. But anyway, Roberto, welcome. This is great. Our first NYCFC Views. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. As if we don't see enough of each other, here we are again doing something more. But thrilled to do this. I miss doing a podcast in English. So I just want to warn people that even though they heard my highlight in Spanish, I will be talking in English in this podcast. I just want to make sure people understand that.
I like the Spanish, and it's very interesting. No matter what Spanish commentary I listen to, it's always the same kind of goal. It could be male, it could be female, it doesn't matter. So I guess that's the signature thing.
It is, but now in Spanish seems to go longer and longer and longer with the goal call. I cut mine down. I've cut it down considerably, actually, because I want to leave the analyst, in my case Ariel Judas, who works with me, time enough to be able to tell us why the goal happened. And a lot of the times that I see on TV, guys go off and you see 2 or 3 replays and they're still yelling goal. They don't give the analyst a shot at explaining why the goal happened. And so I decided I was going to cut mine down, and that gives Ariel more time to be able to explain why things happen. Do you do that with Maddie or no?
Well, I don't have an extended goal call. I just describe it. Every one of them is unique. And last night we had a bunch of goal calls as New York City scores 5 goals in a game, which is amazing enough, but beat the Toronto FC, so 5-0. I wonder, are you a believer in promotion and relegation, Roberto?
I am for European leagues. I'm not a believer for MLS. There's different reasons why these things happen, and for MLS it doesn't work. It works well for the rest of the world.
Right. Well, Toronto FC, whether it's in MLS or not, should be relegated. That's my personal opinion. I haven't seen anything like it in my years of doing NYC games, how poor they were. So at the start of the game, right, first of all, you've got Federico Bernardeschi, who doesn't want to be there. So he has 3 goals on the season. The rest of the outfield players had 2 combined. They had a total of 5 combined goals on the field in the starting 11 against New York City. So a clean sheet, Matt Friesen goal, which maybe was a little surprise, maybe it wasn't, but wow, New York City played well, some very good goals, but boy, Toronto was absolutely dismal. dismal.
There was a stat that I found last night. So, I mean, obviously, everything MLS is now everything Messi, right? And so there was a stat that I saw last night that said Messi has more goals, okay, more goals in two games, right, and not even two full games, that Aquinola, who just got traded to San Jose or loaned to San Jose, and CJ Sapong have had in a full calendar year for Toronto.
Hey, I love the stat. Messi only needs 27 more goals and he becomes the all-time leading goal scorer for Inter Miami. So that's a good one too.
That might happen. He has 10 games to go plus whatever's left in League's Cup. Look, he can win. He can wind up winning 2 trophies in all of this. Just coming in and just seeing the turnaround that Miami had. I mean, also let's talk. We'll talk about Atlanta as well. But when it comes down to that, but Atlanta was awful, and Miami still has terrible defensive problems. I mean, they're just saved their hide every game by Drew Callender.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get to that game in a bit. It's quite a Leagues Cup calendar. And New York City, I mean, 2 good things here. First, they had only had 1 win in their previous 17 matches, all competition. That's a tough stretch.
That's nuts.
That is a tough stretch. So winning that decisively, I felt good for the team, good for Nick Cushing. And the one thing I noticed, I don't know if you saw this at the game, and again, Roberto and I, we do the commentary. Roberto in Spanish, myself in English. We're part of the commentary teams on the radio side for New York City FC. We're at every game. So we were at Red Bull Arena last night for this one. And at halftime, it's 3-0. And the reaction of the reserves who are on the bench to get up, congratulate, high fives, a few hugs. I mean, it was really a close-knit feel, which, considering this run without many wins, if any, in certain circumstances, I thought that was a testament to how the team has managed to stay together and almost galvanized during this period of time. They really felt it was coming. Now, there's more to go, but let's see what happens. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it's very important to understand, and I know that, I mean, we look at social media and we see the trends and we see the Cushing out and the Lee out and everybody involved in New York City out, the impatience that the fans have. They don't get to see the everyday of the team. Now, we don't get to see every day either, but we get to see them quite often because we're at every single practice. We travel with the team. We spend time with them in the hotel, on the plane. So we get to see this. And it's important, I think, for context, that this team has really been together. They've absorbed these losses, and they've absorbed this unusual amount of ties. Sorry, some of them that should have been victories. And they've been able to go with it. They've been able to, there isn't a lot of infighting, or at least it doesn't seem that way. The team mentally seems to be very, very strong. We get to speak to a lot of the players, sometimes on the plane, sometimes in the hotels, sometimes officially, when we do interviews with them. And on and off the record, we always get the sense that the team is really handling this as best as they can, that they know that they've got the potential to win, that there was a missing piece and that it was going to come, and everybody seemed to be confident that it was going to come. And all of a sudden, now, I didn't get a chance to ask Nick Cushing a question last night, but I mean, my first question to Nick Cushing last night, had I been at the press conference, would have been, so does a real number 9 actually make that much of a difference?
Well,
and considering that you're the coach on this show, Glenn, yes, does a real number 9 really make that much of a difference?
Absolutely. My broadcast partner, Matty Lawrence, and I, we reviewed that at one point, and I put the question to him. But the way New York City wants to play, to have a guy to play through, to have a guy that will stay between the 44-yard width of the 18-yard box, but throughout the pitch and not drift out wide and make those hard runs to the front post. The level of comfort in watching that game, again, against a pitiful Toronto FC, and that's an understatement for what we watched last night. But
it was bad.
But Monsef Bakrar, that's who we're talking about. This is just his second game. He came in the 81st minute in the match against Atlas and had a great opportunity that was saved. And look, New York City has already awarded him with some nice a digital artistic rendering. By the way, that says Bachman at the bottom of it. So they're already on it. And as he opened his account, as some people will say, I never said that on the broadcast, by the way. I don't know why that came out of my mouth. I hate that hackneyed phrase. So don't say it, Roberto. Don't ever say it. Even though I
don't. Do we say something like that in Spanish? Abrió su cuenta. It could be, but I've never used it.
Oh, I hear it. It really grates on me. But Bakrar. So his first shot for New York City FC against Atlas saved. His second shot, Sean Johnson saved last night in the that goal. That shot came in the second half. First half.
First half.
And then the next shot on frame by Bakrar was in the back of the net. His first 3 shots for New York City, all on goal. 2 of them forced saves, both of them pretty good saves, and then he scored on the third attempt. That is also what a striker does.
Exactly. What does that remind? Who does that remind you of, by the way? Who made a debut like that? Ismail Tajuri Shradi. Tajuri Shradi. He put everything on frame. And I think it's like his first dozen shots. If they weren't all on frame, at least 10 of them were. I mean, it was extraordinary. He's in the right place at the right time.
I wanted to. I had some communication with Eber, and I know you stay in touch with him too. But yes, I had heard in an interview done by the club with Bakrar, he mentioned Eber as far as someone he communicated with before he made his decision to come to New York City. The only real connection they have is they both played in the Croatian league, not on the same team. So Eber, I sent a little clip to Eber because we mentioned it during the broadcast, and he wrote back and said, "It's true. I sent some messages to him to explain everything about the club and players. And then this is the best part. I just said to him, close your eyes and sign. You'll be happy at NYCFC." Awesome. That's from Eber. Awesome. Isn't that nice? How nice is that?
How about that? That's fantastic.
And he reached out to him without any urging, or he did all that on his own, which also I think Eber misses New York City.
I'm sure he does. Although Seattle is fantastic. It's a lovely city. They've got a great club, although they're struggling a little bit right now, which is sort of weird. You don't expect Seattle to struggle, but then again, they missed the playoffs last year too, so that happens. Last year they were attributing it to, the run that they had in the Champions League, which they wound up winning, and that the toll that took on the team, and they could just never recover from it. But this year, I don't understand what the problem is. I haven't really seen them play, so one of these days I'll take a deeper dive into what is happening there. So while you were speaking to Eber, last night as I was leaving the field, when I was leaving Red Bull Arena, I ran into several players on the way out. And I spoke to one of them, and I'm not going to say who it was, but he's one of the starters. And we got into chatting about the game and the difference that Bakrar makes. And he said that the amount that Bakrar, when he's on the field and the way that he was playing last night, he was entertaining 2 central defenders in so much of the game that it gave them so much more liberty to play behind and to be able to find a lot more spaces. So these are the things that you may not notice during a game, right, on the effectiveness of a player and what he brings to the rest of the team, but that made New York City just so much better. Okay. Also, and changing gears here a little bit, New York City was really, really lucky in a couple of spots, because early on, who was it? The forward 77. Is it Petruzza? Petruzza. Yeah. He had a wide open
free header. You know how we described it? You remember the goal? You remember the goal given up against Atlas? So everybody remembers that. It was it was a calamity on that corner. Another set piece conceded. But this was a run of play, but it was really similar because it was one of those, as a anytime you're defending in the area, you're always taught, don't just ball watch. You have to open up your body and be able to see what's to your left, see what's in front of you, and then see the cross coming in. And I think, again, you see New York City players getting stuck on the ball, and then these players get free on the backside. That was a free header. New York City very fortunate not to go down 1-0 in that.
Exactly, and that might have changed the whole game, because then Toronto probably could have sat back like Atlas did, and New York City doesn't have all the space that they have to be able to create, because Toronto still had to have
I think,
at least some chance of attacking, so
I think
they had to do that.
I think New York City would have been able to come up with something to break down Toronto FC. That was,
Atlas isn't that fabulous, okay? But they sat back really, really well once they got their early goal. I mean, it was hard to break a block of 4 and 5 in front. I mean, there were 9 guys behind the ball at all times. So it was very, very hard. They had a couple of chances here and there, and nothing to say that Toronto wouldn't have done the exact same thing. And then all of a sudden, all that space that Bakrar was able to create because of the fact that the game was tied and because Toronto had to have 2 guys on them, maybe doesn't happen. And then maybe the mentality changes. New York starts forcing stuff. I mean, all these different things, the nuances of the game just changed totally on something like that. And so Matt Freese was in the right place. He was also very lucky that the ball was hit right at his chest. And
that
it turned out just to be a good opportunity that wasn't put away.
Lone save of the game. All right, so look, we're going to go over the Atlas plays Toronto next up at BMO on Sunday. So that's a game that will I'm going to get into the scenarios, or we will get into the scenarios for New York City in a moment. But let's get back to the Toronto game. And Maxime Chanot opens the scoring, so he gets credit for the game-winning goal. A good header, a free header, which, you know, the amount of uncontested headers in the last couple of games we've seen, or uncontested volleys, is rather startling. But Chanot, good finish past Sean Johnson, and you have to feel sorry for the former New York City goalkeeper Sean Johnson. Then it was then Bakrar made it 2-0, and that Chanot was at the half-hour mark. Bakrar at the 45-minute mark, and Santi Rodriguez, second minute of stoppage time, makes it 3-0. So New York City leaves the field up 3-0. Then Andres Jason gets his second in 3 games, and then Rodriguez finishes out the scoring. The Sean Johnson thing. Why were the supporters? I was bothered by this. I wonder how you feel. Why were they booing Sean Johnson? That's terrible. What that guy did for you, as a New York City supporter. Shame on anyone that booed Sean Johnson. I don't care if he's on the opposite side. Boo somebody else, but don't boo Sean Johnson.
Here's the thing. I love the New York City supporters. I wind up spending time with them. Every time before a game, I see them. I go say hello.
Hey, make sure they subscribe to this, okay?
We'll do. We'll absolutely. They're going to hear about what I'm about to say, and they're going to subscribe. All right. I'm really disappointed in the fans right now, and it's not all of them, but there's a subsection of the fan base that really has to get their act together. I mean, first of all, the chant, the anti-gay chant. That somehow appeared in the Atlas game. And I know fans are frustrated because the team is losing and they're going through this horrible streak and all that. But to come up with that is absolutely disgusting, because the New York City fan base, right, and the supporters especially, are very, very pro equal rights in everything that they do. Okay, it's a lot to be proud of there. And so when you come up with the chant that starts with a P in Spanish, and you're saying that, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this? This is horrific.
Wait, can I interrupt you?
You can't do this.
I need to interrupt you because I was not aware of this, and you have confirmation that that's the New York City supporters that were part of this?
It seemed to come from that area, and I actually went on the group and I asked if it was from there. I haven't really seen that they've answered it, but I haven't gotten an alert if there's an answer or not. I hope that, that there is, and that they say, no, that wasn't us, it was somebody else. I hope so. But it seemed to come from that area. I'm not confirming that it was, but it came from a lot of fans that were there, and there weren't that many Atlas fans, okay? And so if it was them, then I apologize, okay? But then last night, all right? Again, I'm 100% with you. How do you boo Sean Johnson? I mean, he's one of the top men responsible for the... What's that?
He's a club legend. They should be hiring an architect. The supporters should hire an architect or a sculptor to make a sculpture of Sean Johnson and see if the club will allow it to be put in front of Yankee Stadium, next to Babe Ruth. I mean, my goodness, what the guy helped win you your MLS Cup. He was the MVP. He saved 2 penalties in the shootout against Portland. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. No, it was
Anyway.
terrible. It was
Yeah,
absolutely terrible. It was embarrassing. It was absolutely
It was.
embarrassing. And then there were other chants that were coming. Even my son heard it over TV. And I didn't hear it on our broadcast because we're probably talking all the time. And so I couldn't hear it. But my son was watching the game at home. And he said that there was this other chant that came over. And I was like, come on. Can we have some modicum of class? Just some? Why do we have to go down to that? Why does the common denominator have to be, let's see how vulgar we can get to see how cool we are? And let's see if it comes over TV. I mean, come on. Have some modicum of class.
All right.
Please.
Well, I agree with you.
We love you guys.
You.
We want you to be better. We really want you to be better. And if you're getting mad at me for saying this, fine. I don't care. I really don't care. I'm not changing my position on this. Have some class.
Don't boo Sean Johnson. Do not boo.
No.
Would they boo Eber? Would they boo Eber if he was on Toronto, trying to score goals? Not a chance.
Probably, at this point, they probably would. I mean, at this point, I don't know. After what they did, if you can boo Sean Johnson after everything he did for this club, you can probably boo anybody. I mean, now we're going to go to Santa Claus comes by. They're going to boo him, and they're going to lower themselves to Philadelphia Eagle fans.
The only thing you could say is that he was a free agent, and it was his decision to leave. Although we don't know what was going on in negotiations, so that I'm not forgiving the booing. I'm just saying they might just be angry with him. But
they can be angry. It's a business. This is all a business. And just as easily as New York City could have said, well, we don't want you here anymore because you're getting old and you're expensive, and I want to give Barraza a chance because it lowers our expense, right? Then that's a business decision. So if New York City had made it, then, everybody would be fine. Right? But it's a business both ways. Players have the same right as ownership and as teams to be able to select where they want to play in their future and how much money they want to be able to make. And if they can make much more money someplace else and be happy, so be it. Loyalty is a two-way street, okay? And Jerry Seinfeld said it best. At this point, you root for uniforms. And that's really what it is.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Roberto. That makes total sense. It makes total sense. Just one other Leagues Cup note. Well, first of all, the scenarios. So this is the best part.
Oh, you got this already, right?
So if Toronto upsets Atlas on Sunday, which, by the way, an immediate investigation on match fixing should take place. But if Toronto does upset Atlas, New York City would win this 3-team division, whatever group. I don't even know what group New York City. There's so many groups, but anyway, and that game would be played at Red Bull Arena as a New York City home game on Thursday, August the 3rd. If Red Bull New York beats Atletico San Luis on Sunday in regulation or shootout, then New York City would play on Wednesday, August 2nd, and the opponent would be New England. I'm assuming that would be at New England. I'm not sure if we could host New England, we being New York City. If New
England finished higher in the standings than New York City last year.
If San Luis beats Red Bull New York in a shootout, New York City would be the home team against Red Bull New York at Red Bull Arena next Thursday. Ooh. And if San Luis beats Red Bull New York in regulation, this is interesting. Red Bull is out. This is probably not going to happen. And New York City would be the home team against San Luis at Red Bull Arena on Thursday. And then the most likely scenario is Atlas beats Toronto. Boom. That's probably going to happen. And then New York City finishes second, and the away team against New England or Red Bull New York. So, that's probably what's going to happen. So there you go.
Yeah, so Red Bull beat New England in penalty kicks. New England slaughtered Atletico San Luis 5-1. And, by the way, two Mexican teams got destroyed with 5 goals last night. Querétaro by Philadelphia and Atletico San Luis by New England. And
but the heavy hitting Mexican teams, they beat the West Coast.
They're both pretty much bottom feeders. I think
I'm saying Monterrey, Club Leon, Tigres. I said the heavy hitters in Mexico, they all beat the West Coast teams in MLS.
Yes, they did. And America and Guadalajara haven't started yet. And Pachuca isn't that good anymore. They won They won like a year and a half ago, and now they're not as good, anywhere near as good. Chivas is very good, by the way. Chivas might be the best team in Mexico right now. Veljko Paunovic is doing an amazing job with Chivas. It's great to see. And America is very good, and I don't know if Sendejas is back, if he's ready yet, because he got injured with the U.S. national team. But they've got a great team. They got Quiñones from Atlas. He already scored a goal for them in his first game or his second game. I think it was his first. And so America is loaded for bear. They've spent the most amount of money this year reinforcing their team. Yeah, Monterrey is also very, very good.
Canino scored in his first game. Played one game, one goal, which is that's a pretty good average. If he can keep that up. And of course, that was
can. Anyway, Monterrey blew out Real Salt Lake, who'd been playing really, really well. They beat them 3-0 yesterday.
That kind of, and this is where you go back and say, which league still has the better of it? And it's still not even close. It's Liga MX, and
I wouldn't say it's not even close. I won't say that. I won't say it's not even close. I'd say it's closer than it was, but the top teams in Mexico, and you can go 4 or 5 top teams in Mexico are better than anything that we have in MLS. Not that MLS can't beat one of those teams on a one-off, but if it was a 7-game series, they're winning it pretty much every time.
And the league budget rules have been discussed recently because of his arrival and the absolute, pandemonium surrounding Lionel Messi. And the one day I was talking to somebody recently, and to simplify things for the sporting directors for all the clubs, and what they're really looking for is not necessarily a higher budget. There's always going to be a cap, I think, in MLS, no matter what. But just let us spend the money the way we want to. And then you can compete better with Liga MX because you're 15th, and you can spread the money around in a way where your reserves are making a good living, and they can come in and have an impact on the game. So I hope it goes in that direction, But
it has to. You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to change everything, especially the way Miami wants to spend money now, right? And they always have, and they found a way. I don't know how, but they have found a way to be able to bring in Messi, Busquets, Alba. They're looking at a whole bunch of kids in Argentina, and then there's still talk that Luis Suarez has told Gremio that he'll buy out his own contract. He'll pay them back so he can go join Messi in Miami. I mean, that is, and how they're fitting this all under the cap. I have no idea. They've already been caught once, maybe fudging numbers.
Jordi Alba. That's where there's got to be a really close inspection to the addition of Jordi Alba.
Eventually there will be, God knows when. Or they're going to loosen up the rules. Here's something that I think they should do. I mean, I've always said that if they want to compete with Mexico, and really on an even basis, they've got to elevate the cap. And they must elevate the cap. Not only must they elevate the cap, they got to force, for the betterment of the league, teams that are cheap to spend money. Okay? And how you do that? Well, you elevate the floor. And maybe you leave out homegrowns and certain players that don't fit in under the budget or anything. You have a special category. But for everybody else, you've got to be somewhere like the NBA does. The NBA has it at 85% of the top. You've got to be able to spend. Or if it's not going to be that, maybe it's a lesser number, but it's got to be somewhere up from where it is. And then the most important thing, if you really want to bring in quality into this league, then you've got to take transfer fees out of the salary cap. Okay? So if you want to bring in somebody who's a $10 million player and you've got to pay $10 million for somebody, who may be young, and then eventually you're going to be able to sell for 20. Let's say a Tati Castellanos, who didn't cost anywhere near that much, but let's use that as an example, okay? You've got to take that $10 million that you've spent to buy that player, and that fits under the salary cap, which is terrible. And so it's stopping the league from bringing higher quality players, maybe players that are well known, and that is going to increase the level of the team, is going to increase the level of play, it's going to increase the attractiveness of the league. And I think it just hurts you. And I think that one of the easy fixes you can make is take that part and take it out immediately. And then you can discuss how much you want to be able to raise the cap, if you want to raise the floor, and if you want to be able to liberate some of these rules so we don't have to go through designated players, GAM, TAM, and God knows what else is there, right? I mean, we know that they brought in, GAM and TAM to be able to spend more money, to be able to fill in the roster at the bottom and bring in higher quality players.
Sure.
Have somebody who can come off the bench and change, and change things, which Liga MX teams do all the time. And it's very few MLS teams that can bring somebody in off the bench that is really going to be able to change a game, right? Yeah. And so that's one of the huge differences. 11 versus 11, it can be pretty even. Once you start going onto your bench, that's where Liga MX teams can really outshine MLS teams. Well, and so if they keep on kidding themselves, okay, at the higher levels of this league, that they really can compete evenly with Liga MX team. And they fell in love with what happened with LAFC that almost beat Tigres, and then you saw Seattle beat a really bad Pumas team that somehow was able to get through their bracket, to get to the finals. And, Pumas that year qualified to the playoffs in 12th place out of 18 teams in Mexico. Yeah. But somehow they managed to get results to be able to get themselves into the Champions League finals.
Let's see. You mentioned Tati Castellanos, who for New York City, great business transaction as they eventually the risk to loan him to Girona, and you have to say that was a risk because you weren't quite sure. But putting up a 4th spot on Real Madrid increased his wealth, and he's at Lazio now in Serie A, and so good budget move for New York City there. And then Gabby Pereira, he transfers. And probably he was making $650,000. He's now playing in Qatar, where he's probably going to earn around $5 or $6 million US. So the need to replace a guy like Pereira, it seems to have been fulfilled. And Sammy, I don't know if you have that ready. If you could put up the tweet that was put out by NYCFC source, and there's no confirmation from the club on this. But Julian Fernandez from Vélez Sarsfield in Argentina is a 19-year-old winger, and he's going to be transferring apparently to New York City FC. According to the tweet, he is on his way for his medical with the City Football Group, and looks like he'll be the 3rd edition. You had Mounsef Bakrar, the striker who scored his first New York City goal against Toronto FC in the Leagues Cup. Yeah, Burke Risa, the left central defender, who has yet to arrive as far as we know because of paperwork. And now maybe Fernandez. What do you know about Fernandez, Roberto?
Well, he's 19 years old. So far this season, he's played 20 games. He's had 3 goals. He was starting for Vélez, who are fighting to stay out of relegation right now. They haven't, he hasn't, the team has not played very, very well. And then, but in the last 5 games, he hasn't really played much. And when I say played much, I'm talking about a total of, I'm looking at this, that's 33, 34, 35 minutes against Union on July 24th, which was 3 days ago. He didn't play. So I think that the rumors of him coming here are more than rumors. I think it has a lot of validity. He's played 65 games in total for Vélez. He scored 7 goals. He represented Argentina's U20 team in 4 occasions from January 2023 to May to 2023. So he's an up-and-coming right wing. He could slot right into where, Gabi Pereira played. And but there's going to be competition for minutes.
How long
there's going to be competition?
What's the adjustment period? There's going to be competition. Yeah. Pellegrini wants that spot. He wants it to be his own, but he's got to start scoring goals. If he doesn't start scoring goals, he can't claim a job as a winger. I'm sorry, you can't be a winger if you're not scoring goals or setting up people for goals. But let's see, maybe
right, which he's done a little bit, but nowhere near where he should, as far as. Well, we think, right? But then again, sometimes you can put in great balls and then there's nobody to finish. And
that's true.
Again, it helps to have a good number 9 now. But then again, by the way, Andres Jason really stepped up last night, and Andres Jason's been stepping it up. The homegrowns have been stepping it up. They've got 3 goals in the last 3 games after not scoring a goal through the entire life of New York City FC. Okay, well, Justin Hack had the first one, and Jason's got the last 2.
Roberto, Justin Hack's goal was disallowed. I know you're excited about that, but it's not 3 homegrown goals in 3 games.
Oh, yes, it is. Oh, okay, 3 and 4 then? Hack, and then Jason's got 2.
Right,
Jason scored against Philadelphia.
I thought you were including Hack's disallowed goal.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm the one who told you it was a
3 homegrown goals in 3 games. Okay,
so it's 4 then. Fine.
Yeah. So it's Jason against Philadelphia. Prior to that, it was Hack against Columbus. Then the Atlas game was a clean sheet for Atlas, so nobody scored in that game. Hack scored, and of course everybody on the New York City side, and I think with good reason. Now that we've seen everything, have you seen that James Sands, it hit his head along with the defender's head? I think abominable call, abominative overrule. I don't think you agree with me.
Okay, there's a different thing between rule and call, because the call is correct, and we've seen this. It is correct. We talked about this.
I know we did, but you
says that it's correct.
No. You didn't ever include Sands having it hit his head in the equation.
It didn't hit his head.
It hit his head.
No, it didn't. It did not hit his head.
It did. It hit both heads. It hit both.
It did not. I disagree. I disagree.
You can disagree all you want. That's what the conclusion of this was.
No, it wasn't. It was not the conclusion. The conclusion was that it came off, that the ball deflected off Nervo. No, it was not. Santi Rodriguez heads the ball. Listen, stop 1 second. Santi Rodriguez heads the ball from outside the box. You're not. What part of listen do you not understand? Let me go through this. Let me explain it, and then you can go and chime in, okay? Please, let me finish. When Santi Rodriguez heads the ball, Justin Hack is in a clear offside position, okay? Then the ball goes to where Nervo and Sands jump for the ball. From the back of the goal, from Luis Barraza's position, from the camera, from that angle, you see both of them jump for the ball. But what you clearly see there, and I don't understand what took VAR so long in deciding this, 5 minutes, 32 seconds, according to Nick Cushing, okay? Because I guess I had a timer on it at some point.
Yeah.
But it clearly shows that the ball deflects off Nervo. It does not touch Sands. If it touches Sands, then he's onside. But because it does not touch Sands, the ball, it's a deflection. It's not a purposeful redirection. And again, that's key in how this is called. And so because it's a deflection and it just bounces off him as opposed to him directing it someplace, and then when Hack touches the ball again, he's offside, because the last legitimate time that New York City touched the ball was when Santi Rodriguez headed it.
Great.
That's why it's offside.
No, you've just called Nick Cushing a liar. He said it.
I've not called him a liar. I am disagreeing with him based on what we saw. And that's not lying. It's disagreeing. And then 1. 2, I also consulted with a pro referee who I showed the tape to, and he came back and gave me the exact same explanation. So, sorry, I disagree. That's not calling somebody a liar if you're disagreeing with them. I don't think the ball touches sand. I don't think anybody, if he says it does, well, fine. But I don't think it touches Sands at all. And when we were broadcasting, I didn't see the what do you call it, with the camera angle from behind the goal at the game. I did not see that. I saw that the next day. And once I saw that, I understood why the goal was disallowed.
Okay. Should have been a goal, 100%. That's my opinion, okay?
That's
my opinion. And beyond all that, IFAB and the referee, the associate, whoever makes these offside rules, here's the thing, and I've said this to you before, this doesn't mean it makes it legal. I'm just saying the defender goes up and challenges on the air ball. The fact that he can't clear the ball with his head because he's challenged by another player and it ricochets to the feet of Justin Hack, who puts it home, that's not a deflection. That's a poor clearance. It is not a deflection. A deflection is where a defender reaches out as far as he can with his foot maybe, and it goes off of his toe and deflects to Justin Hack and he puts it in. That's not a goal. This was a goal. And
You can
New York
disagree with
City
the
got
rule all you
screwed.
want,
New York City
but it
got
is the
screwed,
rule.
and
You
that's
can
that.
disagree with it.
All right.
You can disagree with it all you want, but I mean, it is what it is. And you can disagree with the rule, and I can disagree with the rule, but based on the rules, that's not a goal.
Well,
As much as it hurts, it's not a goal.
common sense.
By the way, this is supposed to be 30 minutes. We're at 40 now. I just want you to know that.
All right, let's move on. So we got Fernandez as a possibility here, and we talked about Leagues Cup and good. Last thing, kicking it around. So Roberto, in our NYCFC News, we're not only going to talk about New York City. See, we still love each other. It doesn't matter. We're going to talk about New York City. Every one of these podcasts. I mean, that's the title of the show.
Yes, it's the obligation,
However,
Glenn. That's why we're here.
We've been given the liberty to kick it around, and I give Roberto credit for the title of that because he's a former headline writer and he's got it all right in his head. So kicking it around. So we're going to start kicking
Something
it around.
Aside from rocks,
the Women's World Cup. So the U.S. Played the Netherlands, which was a rematch of the 2019 World Cup final, Roberto. So it's the second game in their group. And this was probably the most anticipated game in the World Cup thus far. I don't think there's any question about it. It ends in a 1-1 draw, so maybe that's what people were thinking about. But man, there was a lot of discussion around the lineup. No substitutions other than Rose Lavelle. And what did you think of whatever portion of the game you might have seen?
All right, so basically the game was on at the same time that we were on, so
Yes.
it was hard for me to see. You had to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning to watch the whole thing because
I
you
did.
were on Sirius this
I
morning.
did.
So
I
you
did.
have a huge advantage on me. I saw the only highlights I was able to find was 2.5 minutes. Which
I know.
is ridiculous.
I know. FIFA does it 2.5
normally, we
minutes.
get 9-minute highlights. You get a better idea. But basically, for what I read, once Lavelle came into the game, she changed everything. Rose Lavelle is an extraordinary player. There was a time, and not too long ago, where she was considered to be possibly the best women's player in the U.S. and maybe in the world. So that's how important she is.
Well, I don't know. That's taking it. That's not. I don't. Best player in the world. No. But here, I wanted Roberto. Since I have seen the game, there's a really interesting story here because the game really changed when Lindsey Horan, and she's the captain of the U.S. side, and Danielle van de Donk, who is on the Dutch side. Those two are teammates at Lyon and buddies.
Yes.
They're like buddies. And Van Donk came in and hit a nasty, just a terribly harsh foul, which wasn't called a foul, no card. It should have been a foul and a card. And Horan got pissed. And they kind of went chest to chest, and she shoved her and the whole thing. And then Allie Wagner, I give her credit, who did the commentary on Fox, she said, well, the best way Lindsey Horan can make a statement here and get back at Van Donk is to score a goal. And boom, Lavelle corner kick, near post run, and Horan, no one was getting to that ball other than Lindsey Horan. She tied it up at 1. And from that point on, it seemed like the U.S. woke up and Rose Lavelle made a difference. Little question about it, and she gets the assist on the goal, obviously. But that was like a spark, and so they needed a little confrontation, I think, to get them going.
Wow, I saw the goal. They didn't show in the in those highlights. They didn't show the confrontation, but I did read about it, and I was like, wow, two teammates, both wearing number 10, by the way, in this game, going at it that way. And yes, that's the best way to get revenge. They say that revenge is a dish best served cold. That was a cold, hard header that she put in there. It's great service. I love the way that she runs from the back post to the front post. And the power that she gets on the ball on that header was extraordinary. And funny thing is that the highlights that I watched, I first saw it in Spanish with Andres Cantor, and he's great commentary all throughout and great passion. Now, then I got the world feed, looking for better highlights because it was just so short. Turns out it was basically the same thing. And the guy on the world feed on Ruud's goal called it a screamer. And I was like, well, that didn't exactly scream a hell of a lot. And then I saw Horan's goal, and I go, wow, that had a hell of a lot more power than Ruud's goal. And but the U.S., now here's where I have problems with the U.S., and I've had it in a while. Okay, and this is why they're not clear favorites to repeat. For all the scoring power that they have, okay, and they're able to create, they really miss a lot. There's so many opportunities that they have that just seem to go wide or seem to go high or seem to get blocked.